Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I think we need to have some fun, so I decided to do this design. This is an abstract modern, another art-inspired cake. I saw some art that had these squares with those curled edges, and I had to do those in a cake. So this is what I came up with, and I decided to pair it with some colored wafer paper decorations. So we're going to make those first. And all I'm doing here is I am just getting some parchment paper. I'm just folding it into sections and then cutting them into separate pieces. I'm going to use these to help store my wafer paper while I'm working with it after I have colored it to keep it from curling up on itself. So these are just makeup sponges. That's what I'm going to call them. And I'm using these two colors. It is a pearly pink and a gold. Then I use some oil. This is how I'm going to color these. There's different ways to color wafer paper, but I find that you get way more saturation of color if you use this technique or if you airbrush. But for this one, I'm going to use the oil and the makeup applicator or sponge, whatever we're going to call it. And all I did was I just added some oil to the petal dust. And I will do the same with the gold. And I'm just using that sponge to just brush it onto the wafer paper. So you get some saturation there, but I want it a little deeper. So I will go back after I have done all of the sheets of wafer paper and I will add some intensity. And there is some extra oil on these sheets, but I will show you how I get rid of that too. So I'm doing the exact same thing with the gold. Instead of adding Everclear, I am using the oil, and that will give you a lot of shine. And you can definitely see on the gold that it needs to have more concentration on it. So what I did was I went back and I just dry brushed some more of the gold luster dust on top, and you definitely get good saturation of that gold. Absolutely love this technique. It really makes a huge difference. See how much gold or shimmer you have in the concentration? And I did the same with the pink. It just kind of solidifies it. But the way I get the extra oil off is just with paper towels. I am just brushing off the extra oil with the paper towels. And then I line them up in between layers of paper towel and then with the parchment paper. So that hopefully some of that extra oil will seep into those paper towels too. And I went ahead and I just covered the entire cake with my crusting American buttercream, colored in the pink, and I used gel colors to get that pink color. I think it's just some of the pale pink with a little bit of ivory in it. And now I'm making the squares while the cake is in the refrigerator, chilling and waiting to be decorated. I could use those square cutters that I showed you. That's a real quick way to get your squares. Or I could have used the measurements on my cutting board, but I needed an in-between size. So I really needed 1.25 inches just to visually look better on the size of a cake, in my opinion. So I'm just using my quilting ruler to cut them into maybe it's 1.5 inch squares. And I did let it sit for a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes before I went in and cut it to keep the fondant from stretching and pulling. And make sure you have a fresh new blade in your X-Acto knife. Way easier to cut through it. If you do have problems with your new knife, even your new blade pulling, dip your X-Acto knife in some shortening. Get some shortening on there, and that will help it glide through. Again, I just edited 2 videos, or another video, and it's the day after the 4th of July. And if you hear fireworks, it's my neighbors. I apologize. To give them movement, I'm just using a part of a dowel just to wrap that corner around. And I had added some, a little tiny bit of Tylose powder to that fondant so that they hold the shape a little bit better. To get them to stick, I am just using some shortening. Wow, firecrackers. Just shortening. And I wasn't honestly even sure what pattern I wanted. I decided to just figure it out as I went. So originally I went in and I just made the inner 4 corners so that they are the curled pieces. But I do go back in and I add some more some more movement to it after I get them all on there. Now I start at the top so that if you have to cut any of them down, it's at the bottom. So that bottom row, they're a little shorter than on the top, but you're not going to notice it as much on the bottom. I like to have my top be the finished edge. And I don't know if I just showed you there. I did go back in, and some of them I added an extra curl to the edge across from the original curl. Does that make sense? So some of them have two curls across from each other on those fondant squares. Now I put that in the refrigerator to firm up, and I am just cutting my wafer paper into triangles. I wanted to, since I'm going with the geometric corners, I've decided to make these have some sharp corners too. And a triangle is a good way to go. You could do squares if you want to, but I wanted to have some pieces sticking up a little higher. If you do squares, or you kind of have less ability to make pieces stick out further. I'm saying all this without knowing if this is coming across right. But I think you understand what I'm saying. So you have that corner that's taller. If you had squares, you wouldn't be able to do that. And not as well. And all I'm using is my clothing steamer. You could use a pot of water on a stovetop. You just need some steam to help add movement to your wafer paper. And since we had blotted all that extra oil off, I'm not having any trouble with them being shaped. Just as if there were no color or oil on these pieces of wafer paper at all. You might get a little residue on your fingers, but really, honestly, that's about it. And I'm just abstractly gathering them, just kind of letting them show me how they want to be shaped. I didn't come into this with I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but I just wanted things to kind of happen. I've been kind of fighting with inspiration lately. And I think things just happen the way they're supposed to. So happily, I was very pleased with the way those turned out. So I just set those to the side and let them just kind of come to room temperature and just kind of settle into themselves. I did this all in one day, so this is not a multi-day process here. And then I'm just adding some color to some of the squares. I just kind of took each group of 4 and picked one to add the color to it. And again, I did go back. I went back and added a second layer of the gold. I don't always have to do a second layer of gold. I'm not sure why I didn't get a good solid coating the first go around. I don't know if maybe I needed to add some more of the luster dust to the Everclear to get it a little thicker. But as you work with your paints, edible paints, when you add your dust to your Everclear vodka, your lemon extract, whatever you like to use, as it sits, it thickens up. So it goes through different stages of thickness anyway. So sometimes I just kind of work with it until it thickens up, and then I go back to the first ones and then add another coat to those. And I think that's kind of what ended up happening in this situation. And then I did make a paint out of the pink luster dust also, right here. And this was a second thought. This was an afterthought, I guess is the better way to put that, to add some of the pink also. Why not? I always kind of go with the more idea of more is more versus less is more. I don't know if you've noticed with my floral arrangements and my decorations, I have a hard time saying, okay, that's enough. I gotta add just that one last touch of something. I need more self-control maybe. Or maybe it's just my style. We'll go with that. So I'm just touching up all of the painted spots, making sure that we got full coverage. And now it's time to add our wafer paper decorations. I think a lot of times people overthink wafer paper and decorations. And there's a lot of myths that have been put out there on what you can and cannot use with them. Guys, the buttercream works just fine. It's not melting. It doesn't melt it. I've never had a problem with that. I use a crusting American, and maybe it's different with different buttercreams. I don't know. But I do not have a problem with that. And I also don't have a problem with storing the finished cake in the refrigerator overnight, and it doesn't affect the wafer paper. Some of these I did add toothpicks to, just to make sure that they stuck in, like the ones that are on the side. You can do that. Just communicate with your customer. Hey, there are some toothpicks in there. When you remove these, make sure that you pull those out. Simple. Done. Problem solved. And honestly, sometimes these cakes sit in my refrigerator, back to that point of how they don't go bad with the wafer paper. When I get done with these cakes, guys, they can sit in my refrigerator for weeks before I come back and strip them down and reuse them. And I've never had wafer paper melt or fall apart on me. Not one single time. So don't be afraid of wafer paper. It's a very easy material to work with. And here's our final product. I really, really like it. I think it turned out really cool and something different. I think I've been doing a lot of pretty floral and wedding things, and it was time for something abstract. So I hope you liked it. Hope you got something from it, and we'll catch you on the next one.